Good morning, everybody. This is the third and I believe final video in our Women in Learning Torah series. Hope you've enjoyed everything so far. We left last time with just this question. The last video was based on this idea that Isha Shalamda Torah Yesh La Sachar. A woman that learns Torah gets reward. And the question was, well, if you're then going to say we can't teach women all this, so how can she get reward when she learns? And we had a number of answers that we gave, really dominantly the answer of the Prisha, and we talked about how, that might be true of Rov Hanashim, the majority of women back then, but a woman that learns on her own shows that she is of that minority that can learn and absolutely does get Sachar. And we gave the example of Bruria that's mentioned throughout Shas as one of these exceptional women. We left though with a question. So that's about maybe exceptions to the rule. But how do we know we can teach things more broadly than that? But right before we get there, I want to direct your attention at the opinion of the Tzitz Eliezer, right, a posek really from just the last generation, who says something really, really important. The Tzitz Eliezer explains that there is no source. Think about this. There is no source in the Shulchan Aruch that says that a woman can't learn Torah. That doesn't exist. Nowhere does it say that a woman can't on her own learn Torah. The only question is if, let's say, for example, a father can teach his daughter. If we can teach, but there's no question in terms of learning. Adarabba, almost meaning actually the Shulchan Aruch says the opposite. If a woman learns Torah, yesh la sachar. That's what we saw in the Shulchan Aruch. A woman gets reward. Thus, says the Tzitz Eliezer, this is, I think, very important for us to keep in mind. We don't need to find a proof that a woman's allowed to learn Torah because there's no source anywhere that says a woman can't learn Torah. Therefore, if a woman wants to, obviously a woman is permitted to learn. It was never asur in the first place. The only discussion is, can we teach a woman Torah? And that gets into the question of tiflut. Because people maybe didn't have the full mental capacity back then, etc. But in terms of a woman learning on her own, says the Tzitz Eliezer, it's obviously that is allowed, and we don't need to find any source to teach us otherwise. A really important idea and a beautiful point. Fine. So we have sources that a motivated woman is allowed to learn, and you can teach someone who's motivated. According to the Tzitz Eliezer, even maybe a not fully motivated woman, so she can still learn on her own. But here's our broader question. What about, I guess unmotivated people? But broadly really is, what about teaching? I'll add that. What about teaching? Can we start schools? And that's for the masses. And second of all, so what can we teach in these schools based on these various sources? So let's look at the development of this halakha a little bit. We have a opinion of the Smak. That's the Sefer Mitzvot HaKatan. For bonus points, you can tell me afterwards, when did we learn another idea from the Smak earlier this year? But he explains in the introduction to his Sefer, he says that men should learn Gemara and Talmud, etc. But women need to learn all of the halachot that are relevant bisman hazeh. All halachot that are relevant for them. That includes Shabbat, Tefillah, Brachot, Tarat HaMishpacha, Hafrashat Chala, right? All the different halachot that are relevant to them, they are chayav to learn. Interesting to point out, there is another Rishon, the Maharil. The Maharil says something interesting, right? So we've got kind of two opinions. So I just explained to you the opinion of the Smak. Maybe let's find a different color for this discussion. We'll make this maybe green. Okay, that's the opinion of the Smak, who said that basically women need to learn all halachot that are relevant bisman hazeh in this time. The Maharil, though, argues and says women don't need to learn any of these. They will watch how their moms follow halacha, and they'll learn through osmosis. Meaning we know that learning through modeling is actually one of the most effective ways of learning. When young girls watch their moms and how they keep halacha, they will develop that by osmosis. They will absorb all of the halachot. They don't need to learn it in a book. They can learn it from human beings. It's an interesting idea, but this is a machloket between these two sources. So how do we paskin? How do we say, what is the halacha? So we saw this inside the opinion of the Ramah. Let's go back to it. Remember, the Ramah in our source says, chayevet ha'isha lilmod dinim ha'shaychim lisha. The Ramah clearly paskins, like the Smak and others, right? Apparently the Agur, another Rishon, says the same thing, that women are chayav to learn all laws that are relevant to them. But it leaves us with a couple of questions. The first question, we'll put a question over here, is brought down by the Beit Halevi. The Beit Halevi asks a fascinating question. He says like this: how can it be that we say, right, this was back to our Gemara in Kiddushin, how can we say that a woman is patur in Talmud Torah, that a woman is exempt, is not obligated in learning Torah, but yet now we're saying a woman is chayav, like the Ramah says chayav, chayevet. She is obligated to learn, lilmod, to learn all laws that are shayach. How can you say on the one hand, a woman is patur to learn, exempt from learning, and then say that the halacha is she's obligated to learn certain aspects? This seems to be a contradiction. It doesn't seem to match up. So he explains like this. He gives a really important answer. He says there is a difference between learning as a mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the mitzvah of learning, and learning as a hechsher mitzvah. We've had that phrase before, as a preparatory step, as a necessary stage in order to do mitzvot. So the Beit Halevi, and let's move him to the next page. He distinguishes between the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, learning Torah as a mitzvah, and B, learning Torah as a hechsher mitzvah, right? Learning Torah as a preparation in order for them to know how to fulfill mitzvot. Learning Torah to know how to fulfill mitzvot. Says the Beit Halevi something really fascinating. The difference between men and women is about, I guess, the functionality of Talmud Torah, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Men are chayav to learn just for the sake of learning. It's a mitzvah just for learning Torah. And therefore, men are obligated to learn even non-relevant aspects of Torah learning. A man is chayav to learn about the laws of Tameh and Tahara, the laws of the Beit HaMikdash, the laws of Korbanot, things that are not relevant Bizman Hazeh. Women, on the other hand, are only chayav in learning as a hechsher mitzvah, those halachot as a preparatory, as a necessary stage in order to know how to fulfill mitzvot. That's really important because that means we now have two exceptions, right? We have two exceptions to women learning, right? Exception number one from our previous video is motivated women. Exception number two is all women learning Torah as a hechsher mitzvah, as a preparatory stage in order to know what to do. This is really important to where we're at right now in terms of understanding this sugya. So we'll take it one step further. If this is true, that women can learn as a hechsher mitzvah, that women can learn all halachot that are relevant to them, let's understand things from a broader historical perspective. I don't like this green color, but we're still getting it. Let's get the broader historical perspective here for just a moment. There was a revolution in Torah education that happened approximately 100 years ago, and this was the Beis Yaakov movement. The Beis Yaakov movement was led by a woman named Sarah Schneer. She founded it because originally women stayed home with their moms. They weren't going to school, and almost like we said earlier from the Maharil, they learned everything by osmosis, just based on what their mothers did. But as time went on, and around 100 years ago, women started going to school. They started going to regular public schools, but there was no cheder. There was no schools to teach them Torah. They went to public schools, They began gaining exposure to the outside world and wider culture, but they weren't learning Torah in any organized way. So Sarah Schneer had the idea of starting Jewish schools for women. This was the start of the Beis Yaakov movement, and she went to the Gedolim for approval. Just write her name down over here, Sarah Schneer. She went to the different major rabbis of the time, and most of them did approve. And she started this whole movement. So already we see kind of an evolution here as society changed, as women were getting admittance into schools. It became imperative for them to be schooled in a more formal sense in terms of their Talmud Torah. From that, we see a real development of this halacha, of what women are allowed to learn. The Chafetz Chaim, who we know wrote a sefer on Lashon Hara. He's also the author of the Mishnah Brura, right, which is a major work of halacha that we've looked at this year. So he wrote about this issue of Talmud Torah, and he explained that this idea of women not learning, not being taught, that was true only in older times when women were at home and they could learn by osmosis from their parents. But now, when women are exposed to a broader culture and they're being exposed to also dangerous ideas, laws of apikorsut, apikorsut meaning things that are totally antithetical to Judaism and Torah. Now, not only are they allowed, but it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to teach them Torah. And not only that, but it's not only halachot that are relevant to them, but it's a mitzvah to teach them Pirkei Avot, about ethics. It's a mitzvah to teach them things to strengthen their faith in Judaism, to teach them midot. It's a mitzvah to teach them all of these things, to inculcate Judaism into them, and to make sure they stay on the path, so to say, right? Not only is it not asur, not only is it not forbidden to teach your daughter Torah, in our days, and the Chafetz Chaim is writing this approximately 100 years ago, it is a mitzvah, 70, 80 years ago more exact, it is a mitzvah to teach women Torah bizman hazeh, and not just halachot that are relevant, but also relevant machshava, philosophy, ethics, Pirkei Avot, things that will strengthen their emunah. So what is the basis of this? Is there a halachic basis for this? So Rav Lichtenstein, right, the former Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Gush Etzion, right, passed away only a few years ago. So Rav Lichtenstein said, we can base the Chafetz Chaim on the Beit HaLevi we learned earlier, right? The whole idea of the Beit HaLevi was that women are allowed to learn things as a hechsher mitzvah. They're allowed to learn things to prepare them to keeping Torah. He said we can just extend that. Maybe back in the day, in the olden days, that just meant teaching them Hilchot Shabbat so that they knew how to keep Shabbos. Teaching them Hilchot Kashrut to teach them how to keep kosher. But we know nowadays, just teaching people laws it's not the facts that are the reason why people don't keep Torah. People don't keep Torah because there's a lack of motivation, there's a lack of meaning, there's a lack of spirituality, right? Think of all the incredible work that organizations like NCSY does, right? The last NCSY Shabbaton you went on, or big Shabbaton on, it doesn't just like sit you down and teach you all the laws of Hilchot Shabbat. They try to inspire. Says Rav Lichtenstein, nowadays, it is a hechsher mitzvah to teach them hashkafa, to teach them emunah, to teach them philosophy, to make sure that they're able to keep the rest of Torah. It's a beautiful idea and a really important one in terms of the development of these laws. And just to finish on a historical note, Rav Soloveitchik, right, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University, right, some credit as the the founder, but really the builder of modern Orthodoxy. Rav Soloveitchik, passed away a number of years ago as well. But when he started a school in Boston. He started Maimonides School in Boston. He set it up for girls. It was a co-ed school. That girls would learn Gemara at the exact same level as boys, right? There wasn't a difference in tracks. Boys and girls would learn Gemara at the exact same level. Rav Hershel Schachter, who is a current Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University, explaining Rav Soloveitchik's logic for this, he extended this same idea of the Chafetz Chaim and Rav Lichtenstein, that you need to meet the educational needs of the generation that you're dealing with. In the Beis Yaakov movement, that meant learning laws of machshava, maybe, ideas in machshava and philosophy, Chumash, Ramban, etc. And those met the educational needs of that generation. But nowadays, right? This is Rav Schechter explaining Rav Soloveitchik. Nowadays, women are exposed to the highest levels of secular intellectual knowledge. It is imperative for women to see and understand the seriousness and the full splendor of Torah, to see its authenticity, to see its full intellectual depth and breadth. It's not enough just to give a surface level understanding. Women who are sophisticated, all women nowadays who are being exposed to the highest levels of secular knowledge, need to be exposed to the highest levels of Torah knowledge. Thus, he would explain that teaching girls Gemara, etc. This is, again, the basis for schools like ours, why we teach girls Gemara at the same level as boys, right? Teaching girls Gemara is not just that they know Shas well, but it's a hechsher mitzvah to strengthen them as Jews, because these are the needs of our current society and generation. I think overall this is just a beautiful development to understand kind of the way halacha doesn't necessarily, it's not about halacha changing, but it's taking the same underpinnings. The idea of hechsher mitzvah, for example, the ideas of Talmud Torah, the importance of Talmud Torah, and recognizing that those change in a sense at times based on societal realities. And that what a hechsher mitzvah was maybe 2,000 years ago may not be the exact same thing in the year 2020. So hopefully we gain something from these ideas, and we're going to have a chance now to explore and to kind of live out some of these ideas in a few upcoming projects.